It is another moment, ladies and gentlemen, for us to talk issues affecting us in our society. Good evening. This is Viewpoint here on DBS Television. And in today's edition of the program, we will be talking issues related to a man and a woman, relationship issues in our society. And to talk with us, we have a relationship counselor who would be here to talk to us about this issue that is, taking a proportion in our society. We are talking about Mr. Tanto Kenneth. He is a relationship counselor. Good evening, sir, and thank you for being there.
Good evening, Mr. Mange. It's a pleasure being on Viewpoint tonight. It's such a wonderful privilege for us to discuss things that have to do with relationships, because that is actually the foundation of society.
Actually, the foundation of society, and equally our pleasure to have you talk to us. Besides being a relationship counselor, he is equally an author and a servant of God. So we are looking at issues affecting our society. He is the lone guest that we have tonight for other reasons beyond our our powers. We would have loved to have the two guests as usual, but tonight we have only one guest. We would begin with part one as usual. Gender-based violence on the rise in the society, and we are trying to find out, is it in the name of love? Yes or no?
To an extent.
Yes.
Yes, to an extent.
To an extent.
Yeah, there is a love factor involved.
Okay, to an extent. Now we take the second question. Has this any link with the gender equality theory in our society?
Yeah, there is actually a link, because the manly ego of the male entity,
yes,
has a role to play.
So that is yes. This is what he thinks. So let's take part two of the program, and then we come back to get him talk to us. About 3 weeks ago, a Cameroonian couple was involved in a fight in the United States of America, and the fight ended awfully with the woman dying after they had a scuffle. She drove herself to the hospital, according to information we had, and died because of the beatings she received from the husband. All of them were Cameroonians. And we are trying to find out, it is not the first time that we're having such a situation, especially out of the country, between a man and a woman, gender-based violence. And information keeps telling us that with the recent confinement due to coronavirus pandemic, cases of gender-based violence were on the rise, especially when the man had to be in the house throughout the day with the woman. And we're trying to find out from our guest tonight, when we talk of gender-based violence, is it in the name of love?
Yeah, as I indicated in the first part, as it to an extent, it is in the name of love. First and foremost, what brings two people together within the setup of a relationship is love. Yeah, before I proceed, Mr. Mange, I hope our definition of gender within the framework of this program has to do with a male and a female,
of course. That's
modernization and evolution.
It's true, to clear the grounds.
With modernization and evolution, there's been much to do to talk about.
You are right.
Yeah,
you are right.
Other genders, we have transgenders, which I think that is out of the scope of our.
You are right.
Our discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was saying that what brings two people together in a relationship is first of all love. And to the extent that many people have come to terms with the fact that there is a factor which, taken out of love, will never allow love on its own to prosper, which is commitment. When violence introduces itself in a relationship, people decide to be committed to love. They decide to be committed to the relationship because they think sometimes, see, the factor of love that brought them together is bigger than any violence that can come in between them to separate them. So most often you see some people will decide that I've been in this and it's better I keep on moving ahead because I love this man, I love this woman, and I hope with time he or she is going to change so that we can have a more blissful relationship. So I think the love factor has a key part to play that in the cause of violence, many things are not falling apart to the rate which we expect.
Yes, before we continue, we're talking about love here and wanted to find out, does this love override the fact that you want to be alive? You go through all this torture, suffering, that's what we call gender-based violence, because you love the person?
Yeah, it is actually, it is.
And that's the love that you term it as commitment.
What I said, commitment comes as an added value to love.
Okay.
Yes, because many people, if you see the things people go through in relationships, especially women,
yes,
the first of things you want to think is that they will back out. Yes, that is the tendency, is that they want to back out from the relationship. But because they want to fuel the love factor that brought them together with what you call commitment, they decide to hang on with the hope
that things will get better.
But in the course of it all, we always encourage that don't remain there and be silent. In the course of being there, something has to be done in order to turn the hands of to turn the tides around. Yeah, we encourage people that when you are within a relationship, it doesn't matter how much you love the man or you love the woman. If it is turning violent, do all to get a subject matter expert involved in your relationship in order to bring things back on their rails. Yeah, a subject matter expert, I insist on that, because the tendency we have in relationships today is that when violence breaks into a relationship, people have this tendency, the woman may call her brothers for them to batter the man, or for them to brutalize him,
or the parents,
or the parents,
yes,
and so on, which is not always actually the ideal approach to adopt when there is violence. So when there is violence, it's better first and foremost to draw the attention of a subject matter expert, which in this context we're talking more of counselor,
yes,
who will be able to talk to both of you, who will begin by first of all doing a post-mortem, a diagnosis, to pick out what constitutes the reason for which violence has broken out. Because two people often start in a relationship and they love one another. They're two lovebirds. They're so much into one another, but along the line, violence breaks in. What is actually the cause of the violence? The subject matter expert will be able to identify what is at the root of the violence that has broken out in the relationship, and then we'll be able to proffer some solutions or give them some recommendations that if you people really want to flow together in this relationship, do this, don't do this, in order for your relationship to be more blissful.
Yes, sir. Before we continue, you are talking of something like the other partner should not be, the lady, the woman should not be silent. Talk out. And so as to bring in a counselor to broker perhaps peace into the crisis that there was going on in that couple. But I want to find out from you the idea of this relationship counselors in our society, in our African society. Is it a concept that is already in practice? Is it practical? Because we used to believe that the conflict between a man and a woman is supposed to be handled by them, and we feel like if you are mingling between, is like you are the third part. You are interfering. That's the right word.
Yeah.
You are interfering into their affairs, perhaps family affairs.
That is the misconception that had been.
Yes.
Most people languish in relationships and end up being victimized because they didn't adopt the right approach to handle things and bring them back to their rails in that relationship. As you say, it is kind of a concept of bringing in relationship coaches into or counselors into our relationships. It is kind of new to many people. There are people today who conclude, who engage themselves into a marital relationship in January, and by March they are getting married,
yes,
without having that kind of hands-on orientation that is going to give them the insights to get them know that this is what I'm getting myself involved in. So when you have such situations, you see error is bound to occur. Some of this violence we're even talking about, it comes because you got married to a stranger. You got married to somebody who is so quick or so hot-tempered without knowing that this is the person I'm getting married to. So we are encouraging people day in, day out that don't minimize the place of relationship counseling. If you want to be happily ever married, if you want to flow well, try to give them a voice. You see, many people think that no, this couple, I know this couple who got married without passing through counseling.
They are
and they're
succeeding.
Yes. There is a very big problem with that ideology. And let me show you. The big problem with that ideology is that the definition of marital success is still a problem within our African context in particular.
Of course.
That people have lived together for 25 years doesn't
mean
signify
that
marital success.
Of course.
So it is actually marital success is subject to definition. When you enlarge the base to embrace other key factors, you'll be able to know whether the people actually were succeeding. There are some people who within the length of time they stay, they have undergone a lot of psychological torture, emotional torture, sexual abuse, and all of these things put together. And at times you see a woman remaining in a relationship with the statement that I'm still here for the sake of my children. If those relationships that they're already kids, I'm remaining here just for the sake of my children. So it is something to put a lot of checks and balances so that we see people get into relationships, are happy in them, succeed in them, and for the sake of posterity, because this issue of violence within relationships has a very, very big shock it places on the children that emerge from such relationships. Children that emerge from a couple that did not have a level of bliss, their social integration and their marital concept, their marital destinies are always thwarted somehow. They'll look at it like the way mama treat papa or the way papa treat mama. I feel frightened each time I think of marriage, of being able to speak with people like that they need to go through an inner healing for them to be able to embrace the concept of marriage.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. There was something we read somewhere about this concept of marriage where one man told the wife that if our son does not see his future wife in you, you have failed as a woman. And if our daughter do not see a future husband in me, then I have failed as a husband, which means the daughter must look at the father and try to dream that how I wish my husband would be like my father, or a son looks at the mother and say how I wish my wife would be like my mother. But then we are talking about the issue of complaining in marriage, about resolving the crisis in marriage. Our old mothers, African mothers, will tell us that it is the nature of a woman. You don't have to complain. That is the way nature made us. When your husband is talking to you, you just have to be quiet. You don't have to complain. You cannot take your marital issues outside, because they consider a relationship counselor as an outsider. Which means if you decide to go complain to him that this is what my husband is doing, this is what I'm going through. But because when we talk of gender base, it's not only from a man towards a woman. We've had cases of women abusing, men as well. So it's like I go complaining to a relationship counselor that my wife is beating. This is what I go through in my family. And when you listen to this, our African mothers, they'll tell us that our families, we just have to take them the way they are. We resolve our issues in the family. You don't wash dirty linens in the public.
No, we encourage, within the framework of marriage counseling, we encourage the couple to, as much as possible, handle their stuff. But now the issue is, when two of you cannot come to a compromise over a particular issue and it is turning violent, don't stay quiet.
Okay.
Yes. Now, I just want to pick on the situation of Laura and the spouse. I don't know the name of the in the US.
Yes.
Yeah. This is what happened. The lady, from what we hear, not this is what happened. Sorry, I have
from the information that
information we got.
Yes.
We learned the lady had been undergoing this torture for some time. And within the US, there are, I think this is 911, there are numbers that if you are undergoing violence,
you just call the police.
You call and the police.
Yes.
But I've been made to, what I read somewhere is that the lady, the police had even come a number of times, and the lady tried to cover the man up.
Of course.
Yes. Which to a very good extent was good. But when it has turned violent, that you keep being punched day in, day out,
life-threatening.
Yes, it becomes life-threatening, and you cannot love somebody in the grave.
Of course.
You must be able to speak out. And speaking out, in my opinion, family is not always the most objective entity.
Okay, family of either the woman or the man. Because they will certainly take sides.
Few are the families that will come and you have an issue with your wife and they decide to side with your wife and not with you.
Yes.
In fact,
they will not be neutral.
Many of them will want to take sides with their son.
Yes.
So also with their daughter, if it is the family of the woman that comes in.
Yes.
So for me, an objective third party who is also a subject matter expert is more appropriate to talk things out with the people. Because even not necessarily saying that I will go and meet my pastor. It's not every pastor that has the hands-on skills for relationship issues.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true. They went through, no, they were not trained to be counselors.
Exactly.
Marital counselors.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it is not, and besides the training, I believe so much on a divine endowment that comes with the possibility to be able to put two people down who are in a relationship and speak and win their confidence and get them follow what you're telling them. There's a divine endowment, I believe, to it.
Okay.
So I think essentially it is not good to die in silence when your relationship is turning violent. The approach you also adopt should not also be like, because some women are such that the least thing that happens in the home, they find themselves at the balcony and they begin to scream.
The next neighbor must know that.
Everybody must know and come to the rescue. It's a very bad approach. What you do as a woman or a man within a relationship is, if things are getting violent, use a mature approach. The approach that you're using should be such that you want to build. You are not, from its face value, wanting to just destroy everything, but you want to build. You talked about our people who are taught,
especially our African mothers.
Yes, who think it is not good to
take family issues outside to the third party.
Yesterday, the mindsets were different. They did so and succeeded. But today, the tides have turned. It's no longer the same thing. How many people did you hear yesterday that were their husbands just got up and killed them, as we hear in today's society? So there is the evolution and many other things. And those same women yesterday, they actually behaved like women who had the mindset of building. I think with the modernization and the evolution in our society today, many women have gone beyond the level of taking the position of a woman, not the position of an inferior human being, but the position of a woman. Because the mindset, some people think that if I take the position of a woman, I'll be looked upon like an inferior human being. It is wrong on either side. You, a man who looks at a woman as a second-class human being, you are on the wrong.
Yes.
And you, the woman who think taking your position as a woman will make you appear like a second-class human being, you're equally on the wrong. So the mindset we're supposed to inculcate is that each and everyone work on your conscience, work on the mindset that we are in this relationship to build, work on the mindset that we are in this relationship to make it sustainable. Let it move from where we are to another level, and so that our children have a historic of parents that lived marital bliss that will also lay a foundation for their marital bliss. Okay.
Now we take question 2, and we are looking at, you said something like no partner should consider his or herself as inferior. We have this concept of gender equality theory in our society, where we think that, the society tells us that what a man can do, a woman can do it, and even better. Does this issue of gender-based violence, is it having any link with this gender equality theory? And you think so?
I think there is a link because there is a misconception. And, I want to... Let me go back a little memory lane.
Yes.
That was in September 1995. I remember the Beijing conference took place in Beijing, and there was the Beijing Declaration, which came out with the action plan or something.
Yes.
In my opinion, the idea was very good, but I believe more in equity than equality. There is no way a man can be equal to a woman. It is not possible.
Yes.
Now, when you even go back memory lane, you look at from the Bible, it looks like if you don't look at the wholesome concept of the Bible, it looks like there was some gender inequality in the Bible, because the 12 apostles,
there was no woman.
Yes. The 12 tribes of Israel, there were no woman.
Yes.
When you read the Bible in the book of Genesis, where the people of Sodom and Gomorrah came to attack or the angels that visited Lot, he said, I prefer to give you my daughters, for you to sleep with. You go on to, even in Numbers chapter 27, you see the 7 daughters, the daughters of Zelophehad, who, because within the ranks of the Jews, women were not permitted to inherit. They got up and said, no, because our father did not have a son does not mean we will not have. So
like what our father should.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what I'm saying in essence is that you must understand the concept of equity and equality when it comes to gender issues. Equality in gender issues will be, okay, let's take for instance a state of incapacitation. Me as a man, for instance, I am incapacitated. Let's say I have my one leg has a problem.
Yes.
And there's a woman on her 2 feet. Now, okay, say I am an employer to 2 people of that nature. A woman who is equally qualified with the man, and the man has, a handicap.
Handicap, yes.
And within this period where there are layoffs because of coronavirus,
yes,
if I lay off the woman because the woman is on her 2 feet and can more easily pick up another job, would that be gender inequality?
Okay.
Yeah. Look at it from that angle. I have 2 employees.
Yes. I don't think it's gender inequality.
I am applying the concept of equity.
Yes.
Where I'm trying to get to,
because the woman can survive.
She can more easily survive.
Yes.
But if you want to take it across the board from where the people say, why did you not sack the man, you sacked by the woman? Yeah, it will be like, okay, you ought to have laid off the man, not the woman.
Yes.
But now you are looking at a concept where there can be a
who can adapt.
Yes.
Who can easily adapt outside there.
So it is the concept of equity. But if it's equality, you will be looking at other factors. So in my opinion, the concept of equality, gender equality, has been largely misunderstood, especially in the 21st century. It has been largely misunderstood and has gotten to a point where it triggers the manly ego in men to now begin to want to fight back, because women have stood up. We got to Beijing, and in Beijing, with about the 40,000 delegates that came from all over, it was like the girl child and the woman are supposed to have in fact, it's supposed to be a situation of tabula rasa. Everybody needs an equality. It's good that if we are to produce this table, a man and a woman equally produce this table, they should end the same.
The same, of course.
It's good.
Yes.
But when you read the Bible in the book of 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 7, if I'm not mistaken, it will say the women are supposed to be treated like the weaker vessel. That is the principle of equity that the Bible is pushing across, not equality. The equity factor will say, try to balance up for the challenges the woman has in her. Because women have, by nature, some challenges that they face. For instance, when I look through, even in the offshore companies, the offshore industries, the petroleum and gas industries, it is just recently that women have started going offshore. They never used to go offshore.
Because they are women.
Because they are women.
Yes.
So I won't employ predominantly or all my people to take offshore to be male, and it poses a problem of inequality because women have some challenges they face. Take for granted they go and they are offshore for 3 months, and before long she has some issues like menstruation and all
there
that.
Are no parts.
And there's some women who during their menstruation they feel a lot of pain and so on within the period. Now, if I as their employer or their supervisor, I can't pay you for the 3 days that you can't work because you are having belly cramps. Will that be considered inequality, or how do you call it?
Okay.
So some of those things, there are some indices which we must pick and take into consideration and leave aside to too much of gender.
Okay.
Go in for equity.
We are talking about this issue like you are clarifying the concept of gender, how it should be interpreted. And somebody said something like, most of our women this day, with this concept of gender equality, with their, educational background, they carry on their head that what a man can do, a woman can do it better. And they think that since a woman is up to the level of a man, you don't have to talk to me that way. I can't just take it from you. And that is why he indicated that when you look at in yesteryears, our old mothers, they were submissive and they lived happily. But today, a woman will tell you that, no, a woman's right. You are not supposed to do this. You are not supposed to do this. Is this not this quest, this fight to maintain this gender equality, another point that triggers this violence? Because like you say, the manly ego pushes itself out when a man has to fight back. Because you're already telling me that since you are a man, you're coming back at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. I'll also come back at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, because all of us, we are equal. Is it not another factor that fuels this misconception of gender equality?
That's a very bad mindset.
Yes.
The present president of Tanzania
is a woman
who took over from late John Magufuli.
Yes.
The lady made a statement which I was so impressed with. He said, because I think at the time she was still the vice president. Because she is of that prestigious post, does not change her husband from being her husband to another thing else.
Correct.
I think education, enlightenment is supposed to take somebody to become more and more cultured and civilized. If education is the reason for which you become a moral dwarf, you become a social dwarf, then there is a problem with that education. Having a degree is not all that there is to education. Education is supposed to be that experience where you have a complete transformation of your whole being, that you can reason in a level-headed manner, you can drive things across with more maturity. Yeah, what you've said is very, very capital, Mr. Mange. You've said there are some women who, because they have maybe gone to school, they are educated, there are things which they say they cannot take from a man. We don't encourage men to give women doom. Neither do we encourage women to carry their social status, their educational profiles on their head, to be disrespectful to their men. Those two, in fact, there must be a close balance in the two. And when it is so, the woman now has to understand that there is what you call in relationships role balance. Understand the role I have to play, understand your position, and you get the other person also working on his or her own position. But the typical African man too is a headache. You must say so. The typical African man has a patriarchal kind of mindset. When you look at, I read something somewhere that South Africa should be the country with the highest cases of gender violence.
Especially, violence. Of course, especially during this COVID-19.
South Africa, I think in the whole world, something like that. Now, when I try to get probed into why it should be happening so in South Africa, it's a cultural issue. The patriarchal kind of mindset where the man thinks I am the
king.
In fact, the world is changing, and we have to also change paradigm. If you want to remain on that platform to say, I am the man, I must be the man, and things must be, you are not. In fact, it's supposed to be, marriage is for complementarity. You complement one another. You can be a king to whatever level, but you are not a monopolist in terms of knowledge and in terms of responsibility.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tato Kenneth. We would love to continue this discussion, but time is no longer on our side. Thank you for being there.
My almost pleasure, Mr. Man.
And we hope that next time you will be available to let us talk other issues.
I will make also be there.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, let us take the discussion on our Facebook page. That is all we had time for today's edition of the program. Immediately after this, the news in the English language would be coming up with Cynthia Nguemo. Until then, have a blessed evening and goodbye.